everybody, this is Laura coming to you today from End Time Apostasy. I hope you guys are doing well. Now today I'm going to be looking at Ravi Zacharias International Ministries and a guy called Sam Allbery. First of all, I want to explain to you about Ravi Zacharias. I have done a video on him, exposing the fact that he's very much involved with the ecumenical movement, that he thinks that Henry Nouwen was a great man of God. He denied it, but he still has the information up on his website about Henry Nouwen, who was a great Catholic mystic. And also you will see that Ravi Zacharias has sat with Joyce Meyer and called her one of the greatest teachers ever. I will leave the link to this video that I made. It's a good few years ago now, but you can go back and have a look. And also how he was involved with Robert Schuller, and how he speaks from both sides of his mouth. He says one thing one minute and the next minute he says something completely different. And you'll see that in the video that I made before about this man. So, the gentleman in question that I'm going to be showing you is this gentleman here called Sam Allbery. Now, he's an honorary minister at St. Mary's Maidenhead. He's an Anglican priest, and Sam now works for Ravi Zacharias International Ministries and the Gospel Coalition, but is still part of the church family at St. Mary's and preaches here regularly. Now, this gentleman is a homosexual man who is living a celibate lifestyle and feels called into that particular ministry. Now, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you here that yes, indeed, he is on Ravi Zacharias International Ministries, same-sex attraction, synod remarks, and why the gospel is really good news for all. On February 15, 2017, Sam Allbery, or the I Am speaker, founder, editor of Living Out, and author is God Anti-Gay and 7 Myths About Singleness, addressed the Church of England General Synod in London. His brief remarks were very compelling as he challenged the Assembly on their approach to Christian doctrine on marriage. My question to the bishops is not, will you preserve this doctrine, but do you really believe in it? It is good. Is it good news for the world? He said. Many of us had found it to be life-giving, as the method and teaching of Jesus always is. So, there was an article that was brought out exposing some things that Sam Allbery said that were very, very blasphemous. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play these clips. So what you're about to hear is very shocking, and I will comment on these comments on what he's saying as we go when I feel it's appropriate. Okay, so let's just play this.
Not conforming to certain narrow stereotypes that the Bible never ever taught. I think of one dear friend of mine who told me once that growing up in his church, one of the things he literally dreaded every year was the annual church picnic. Because everyone would sit down, they would sit on the grass, have their picnic lunch.
Okay, so this guy's actually talking at Ravi Zacharias International Ministries. I don't know if I mentioned that, but let's just continue.
And then the same thing would happen every year. The men would go off and play, I think it was softball or something, and the women would kind of sit down and chat. And he hated sport, just had no aptitude for it and no interest in it. So he would kind of feel like I can't go and do that because I just won't do it right. So I'll sit here and talk with the others, and they would constantly be saying, why are you sitting here talking to us? You should be over there. Because that church had got into its head that this is what men do and this is what women do. But the Bible gives us a much broader range of what it looks like to be a man and what it looks like to be a woman than our culture does, and very often than our churches do.
Now this is the part where I want you to really listen to this. Very, very important.
David was the surprise choice as king of Israel precisely because he didn't look like the kind of person you imagined the king to be. He didn't come from central casting. They didn't even put him on the shortlist because they just assumed, well, David, not David. Whatever you've got in mind of a king, it's not him. As David is introduced to us in the book of 1 Samuel, we're told literally that he was beautiful, and the Hebrew word is a word used only ever to describe women. In contemporary language, David was a pretty boy. And he was someone who spent an inordinate amount of time playing a harp and writing poems about his feelings. They're called the Psalms, they're great.
Do you see what he did there? He's now saying that David was actually an effeminate gay man. This is absolutely demonic. In actual fact, when you look into the Greek, someone explained this to me, is that David had beautiful eyes. He had very intense, beautiful eyes. But this had got nothing to do with him being effeminate. Let's continue. This is blasphemy.
And my fear is that many people would look at David today and say, David must have gender dysphoria. Or you think of some of the feisty women in the Old Testament, and again, many people would have looked at them today if they were growing up in our contemporary culture and said, well, probably some gender identity issues going on there. So we mustn't deal in unhelpful gender stereotypes. But as I close...
So this is what they call serious eisegesis. He has an agenda. And the agenda is to say, well, look at even David had this problem, which he didn't, right? Remember David went after Bathsheba? Okay. David did not have gender dysphoria issues. Let's continue.
Let me say, we need to recognize where real hope is found. We tend to think, and our culture encourages us to think, that any problem we have with our body is ultimately going to be solved by our bodies. And so if I'm feeling out of place in my own flesh, well, the obvious answer is I need to change my flesh, and then that will fix things. If I just get the body I want, that will make everything fine. But friends, if you are looking for your body to fulfill you, you are heading for disappointment. One of the unspoken tragedies of the transgender kind of issues facing us is the amount of pain and regret experienced by people after they've gone through some kind of transition surgery.
Now what he's actually talking about here is true. So he's gone from absolute falseness into a certain amount of truth. And this is how these false teachers do it. They bring in truth, but they bring in the leaven of the lie that David was, guess what? He was effeminate. No, he wasn't. But watch what he does here. This gets really demonic.
The rates of deep regret are high. If you've gone through some kind of transition surgery, you are 19 times more likely to commit suicide than the average population. And I suspect part of the reason for that is because if we spend years thinking I'm in the wrong body, that is what is most fundamentally wrong with me. If I can only go through this transition, that will be what makes me feel like I really am me. That will be what will give me a sense of inner freedom, inner wholeness, inner completion. That will finally help me to feel like I'm okay. I will finally be the real me. And you go through that process, which is highly invasive. And it doesn't make you feel fully okay. You will not be going back to square one. You will be somewhere far worse, because now you won't have hope. There is a body that will finally and fully give us freedom. But it's not our own. Paul writes these words to the church in Colossae. He says, God has now reconciled you in Christ's body of flesh by his death, in order to present you holy and blameless and above reproach before him. Holy and blameless and above reproach is another way of saying complete, authentic, real, whole, at peace, fulfilled, content, happy, fixed. And it comes about by the brokenness of Jesus' body. And the only hope for our brokenness in our own bodies is the ultimate brokenness of his body. He knew what it was like for his body to cause him enormous pain. He knew what it was like, if I can put it this way, to have body image issues, because we're told in Isaiah 53 that people turned their faces away from him. People couldn't bear to look at him. His body image issues weren't in his head, they were real. The kind of people who are normally, do you call them rubberneckers here? When there's an accident on the interstate, who will slow down to have a really good look. There was something about Jesus on the cross that was so appalling, people would actually look the other way. It was more than they could cope with. And there was no greater dysphoria than when he who knew no sin became sin for us. That is the ultimate experience of being in the wrong flesh. And yet, as he took that on himself for us, he opened up the prospect, not just that we could be freed from our bodies, but that we could be free in our bodies.
Okay, so I want you to understand, did you get what he said there? He said that Jesus had gender dysphoria, that Jesus was gender dysphoric. That is absolute and utter blasphemy, brothers and sisters. And this is what Ravi Zacharias is telling people to listen to. And also that David was effeminate. This is vile. Now, some of the things he says is true, but to actually say that Jesus had gender dysphoria on the cross? No. This is total heresy, and it's filth. So, brethren, this is all I have for you at the moment. I pray that this has opened up your eyes to the dangers of listening to Ravi Zacharias and his quote-unquote ministry. Okay, so may the Lord bless you, may the Lord keep you, and may the Lord let his light to shine upon you. And I'll talk to you super soon. Bye for now. Bye-bye.